The Digital Scene Show is sponsored by Light Panels, makers of the world-renowned Emmy Award-winning green-friendly LED lighting systems. Check them out at lightpanels.com.
I want to talk to you about the Charles S. Swartz Award for outstanding contribution in the field of post-production. It was created in honor and memory of Charles Swartz, who among other accomplishments headed the Entertainment Technology Center, was a producer, educator, board member of the HPA, and a good friend of our industry and a good friend of mine. This award was created to acknowledge the significant artistic, technological, business, or educational impact in post-production. The mission of this award is to recognize broad and lasting contributions that have advanced, provided some unique purpose to the field of post-production. We are proud and honored to bestow this year's Charles S. Swartz Award to acknowledge the lasting contributions of Ben Burtt. To present this year's Charles S. Swartz Award, please welcome the director of films such as Star Trek and Mission Impossible 3, as well as the creator and producer of TV shows such as Fringe, Lost, Alias, and Felicity. Please welcome J.J. Abrams.
And hi. So you'd think it would be a truism that if you go around hitting electrical tower tension wires with a wrench, that you would end up in prison or electrocuted. But this gentleman tonight, who we're honoring, who did these things, ended up one of my heroes. I first became aware of Ben Burtt when in the 80s I saw a documentary about the making of Star Wars and saw this gentleman hitting this tension wire, which coincidentally made the sound of a laser blaster. And I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. It was so simple and so genius. I often wonder if Ben were working on a film where he had to do the sound of someone hitting a wrench on a tension wire, what he would actually use. But he became a hero of mine personally, not just as a fan, when we were working on Star Trek. And we had a mix of the film, and there were amazing array of incredibly talented people working on the film. And we had a mix, and the truth was that the mix, just for some reason, wasn't working. And so I called, I asked if Ben Burtt might be available, just to give us some perspective. And amazingly, he was for this period of time. And I called Mr. Burtt, and it was like a rock star on the phone for me. And I got on the phone, I was nervous, and I was like, I was so excited talking to Ben Burtt. I was very disappointed when I finally met him, obviously, but no, I wasn't. And he was so kind and so nice. He said he'd come down and watch the film, which he did. And we watched the movie, and I was terrified. And afterwards, he said in an incredibly articulate way that basically the mix wasn't working. I was like, thanks. And he explained why, and it was that there was just too much. And you have the 200 tracks of a Pro Tools session, and it doesn't necessarily guarantee quality. It actually is sometimes the enemy of quality. He explained to me that there was too much going on, and he was right. It was my fault, because I kept pushing for more and more stuff. He also recognized that because I was trying so hard to do other stuff and different things and new, that the film wasn't Star Trek. It didn't sound like Star Trek. And watching him work with the team, simplifying, pulling things back, and creating and recreating many of the sounds, those sonar pings and things that really were signature sounds of the original Star Trek. Suddenly our film became the film it always wanted to be, and somehow through my misguided efforts, it hadn't become. Ben Burtt came in and he salvaged it, and I realized that this man really does have visionary ears. He's an amazing collaborator and an incredible talent, and we have a reel which we're going to show to you now. It's an honor to present the Charles S. Swartz Award to Mr. Ben Burtt.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much. JJ, it's just wonderful he came out here to do this and present this. I'm really honored. He's one of those young directors, and I've learned some things from him also working on Star Trek. You know, he's the first director I know that brought an electric guitar to the final mix, which I'd never had that happen before. And also, during the course of working on Star Trek, we'd have conversations at the mix like this. We'd be working on some difficult sequence, and they'd say, well, Ben, we're in an asteroid field, can we get some meteor impacts on a spaceship? And I'd say, yeah, let me go get some of those. We've got a force field, and we need some shimmering force field tones. Well, yeah, I'll go make some of those, and I've got some of that. And, well, how about some time-space continuum ripples or something? And, you know, something to go right here. Okay, let me go get that. And so I was pretty well trained in that kind of language. But then we came up with a scene where, because it was a J.J. Abrams film, the camera was going like this. It was whizzing around on the set. He needed a swoosh for the camera. He wanted to put a sound in for the camera. And I didn't have one. So I was ill-equipped. So that was my baptism into the modern age of filmmaking. And, but I've had the great opportunity over the years to really, I mean, I love space, and as a little kid, I used to sit in bed imagining space adventures, and this was before we even launched any astronauts, you know, out into space. And I'd sit there with my little Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon toys, and I'd make the sounds, and they'd go up and down the hills and valleys of my blanket, where I'd, you know, sit there with my knees up in bed, and I'd make up stories with sound, and I'd fly the spaceships, and I'd do all of this sort of thing. And I just never imagined that all that training and all that daydreaming would pay off someday. I never considered getting into the movie business as a career. I certainly never intended to go into post-production. Who would? But I was warned. But there were other plans at work, and I ended up, you know, getting involved as making movies as a teenager, and then going to USC Film School. You know, got very involved there in sound, because there weren't many young people at that time interested in going into the sound into the business. And I eventually got to really get into space. You know, George Lucas, of course, gave me a fantastic opportunity to develop the sounds for the Star Wars films, and it was, let's see, a tour of duty that was 29 years and 10 months. Not as long as Paul Hagar yet, please. Then, you know, Andrew Stanton last year took me into space with Wall-E, and then, of course, J.J. Abrams earlier this year, a year ago, I guess that's about now, gave me the great opportunity to go out on a voyage with Star Trek. And lastly, I want to urge everyone, we know in post-production you're in a very tough business that takes a lot of sacrifice of your time and energy. And I've never fully solved this problem, but I've learned over the years that you have to make time for your loved ones, that you have to try to get home for dinner and be with those kids across the table at night, if you can. And I know the business doesn't, you know, favor that kind of activity. It doesn't put an emphasis on that, but you find in many, many years that, you know, those loved ones that you leave at home that are waiting for you matter a lot more, really, ultimately, than the films and the shows and the things that we do. So try to find a balance there. You know, try to find projects that allow you to do that, or make decisions that allow that to happen. Excuse me, I got a little bit of laryngitis. But anyhow, thank you so much for this award. I really appreciate it. It's really an honor, and thank you again, JJ. So, thanks.